Okay, we're going to have a prayer and pledge to the flag. We are Republicans. We do believe in God and country. And so, if you will, stand with me. I'm going to ask Brother Sasser over here to lead us in prayer and thank the Lord for our time together and the food, and then we go pledge allegiance to the flag here in front of me.
Shall we pray? Father, we're honored. Lord, where we believe in you're not, you're still real. We thank you for the privilege of being here tonight. God, we do pray for our government. We pray for our president, all of our leaders. We pray that America return to you. Thank you for this food. Thank you for the work of this committee. Bless them and bless their efforts to lift you up and to elect God-fearing people. Thank you for everything you're doing for us. Have mercy upon us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, please join me in the pledge of allegiance to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you may be seated. Our program for tonight, our agenda will be to eat first. The food has been prepared. You'll make a line back down on our left here and get your food, hamburger or hot dog and chips. You got drinks over here in the back, and make your way back to your table. Eat, and then about no later than 6:30 we will actually pick it up and start with our program, and we'll come back and introduce the ground rules at that time. Okay, thank you, and if you will, John and your group over there, start and go lead the way to the food, please. Hope you've enjoyed your hamburger. Hey, can we get a hand of applause for our staff that cooked and served us tonight? Thank you, guys. They do serve good food out here and encourage you to come by and stop. They serve a breakfast here too, and I made a mistake. I come by here one day last week, one morning. I sat right at that table right there, I think it was, and this nice lady come out and took my order, and I just had pancakes on my mind. I just wanted pancakes. So she comes up and takes my order. I said, I want a pancake. She said, one or two? I don't know how big they are, so I said, yeah, give me two. Ooh, Lordy mercy, this thing was like that. I think I probably ate a third of what I had on my plate. And I hate to leave food on my plate, but I did that morning because I couldn't handle it. So if you come here, unless you're really hungry, only order one pancake or take some home and share with your wife. Okay, I'm going to break a little bit from our statewide candidates. One of the hot contested local races we have here in Covenant County is for the Covenant County representative to the Alabama GOP State Executive Committee. We have 7 members from Covenant County who represent Covenant County at the State Executive Committee. One of those positions are contested, Wiley Ward and Stephen King. So we're going to give each of those guys a chance because they will be on the ballot. So, you know, when you look in the ballot, you say, who in the world is that? Most people may not know who they are, but you will because you're here tonight. So we're going to take in alphabetical order, and I'm going to ask Stephen, if he will, to come up and speak about 5 minutes, and then Wiley come and speak 5 minutes, and then we'll go from there.
Thousands of people. My name is Stephen King. I was born in Andalusia, Alabama. My parents are from Andalusia. I am a graduate of Andalusia High School. I went to LBW, and I went on to the University of Alabama. Can you hear me all right back there? A little hard? Okay. I went to the University of Alabama, and I now currently serve on a board at the University of Alabama for fundraising for scholarships. I also am on a chairman for a committee that raises money for the Performing Academic Arts Center. It is being built currently at the University of Alabama. It's a new entranceway. The reason I wanted to be on the State Executive Committee is primarily to get involved. We see so much in our country today that is changing things that we're not familiar with, we see, and we don't believe in it. And I think that the thing that we need to do is get involved. And the best way to get involved is on the entry-level grassroots, and that's what the State Executive Committee is. We put the ear to the ground and take the word to the legislature. So that's why I want the job. Currently, I've been attending the Executive Committee meetings, and I have actually sponsored a few of the meetings myself. Uniquely enough, I was at the summer meeting at the Troy Arena. And the unique thing was, since I sponsored it, I was sitting at the table with Philip Sims. He's the campaign director for Scott Dawson. And I was having a conversation with one of the other sponsors. The unique thing about it was they were trying to find out what I do for a living. Well, those of you that know me really well know that I work for Power South. And I work at the power plant. So I wear the brown uniform, just like you see the linemen out in the field. We have to wear the fire retardant clothing and so forth. But I'm sitting there in a suit talking to these very important people is the way I see it. And they asked me, well, what do you do for a living? And I said, well, I'm about as blue collar as it gets. And they thought I was joking. And no, I was serious as all get out. I represent the working people. And the thing is that's where that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's why I want to do what I can on the executive committee is I want to make our nation better. I want Alabama to not be 42 anymore. I want us to be up here at number 1. And not just the University of Alabama, the state of Alabama. And that includes Auburn. I mean, no offense there. But anyway, that's all I have to say. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Now we asked Mr. Wiley Ward to come up and share a bit with you.
Well, I don't know how many of you know me, but I've been around in Covington County for a long time. I'm 84-year-old. I was born and raised in Covington County. I went to school at Auburn. I became an engineer. I worked 36 years in the aerospace industry. I worked with directly for the Germans in Huntsville. I worked as a consultant to them. But getting back to the party, I got involved in the Republican Party in 1957 when 2 of our senators, state U.S. senators, turned down the Navy in Pensacola. We wanted to put a Navy base research center right up here in Escambia County, right over the line. And those 2 senators, Democrats, turned it down. They were bought off and turned it down. And at that time, I swore that I would never again vote for a Democrat. And I have kept that promise. I worked very hard to get rid of those guys. Never succeeded in it. But I worked in the party. I've been all the way, I've held every office in the party. I was up at the Huntsville most of this time, but I held every office from ward chairman all the way to vice chairman of the state party. Now the reason I'm running, and that's just one thing, I wouldn't have come out. I don't really need to get back in party politics. The reason I'm running is this last election. Folks, we allowed a Democrat to get elected. We had a guy that I consider an absolute criminal as a candidate, Republican candidate for that office. Now we could have prevented that. The state party, Ken Barr, he was kicked out. He got 1 criminal charge. He re-ran. He got elected. This is the 2nd highest office in the state. Man, he had all kind of power. He got kicked out again with 7 criminal charges against him. And he come back and got on the ticket, and he I'll tell you, the worst vote I ever made in my life, as I said, I never would vote for a Democrat. But this last election, I had to vote for a guy that I knew was a criminal, and that was Roy Moore. And my thing, I can go to the state committee. I know a lot of the people on that committee. I can go to the state committee and I can get a resolution passed. I will introduce a resolution to bar anyone that has ever been kicked out of office, to bar them from running on the Republican ticket unless they have been proven innocent by a jury of their peers. Now, what Roy Moore did, he's never been charged. I don't know if we got any attorney generals here, but we've had the attorney generals sit around and they wouldn't touch him. So anyway, that is my reason for going. Now, if any of you is interested in what I did for the party, this tells the whole story of the Republican Party from day one in Alabama. I did a lot to develop that party, and you can read about it. It'll tell you about every political office in Alabama. So anyway, I'm running for one reason, folks, and that is to bar anyone that's been removed from office from ever being allowed to run on the Republican ticket again. So we can do it, the party can do it, and I will introduce that resolution. And I believe I've got enough friends on the executive committee to get it passed. So, you got any questions? Shoot them.
All right, thank you.
We have 4 candidates here. All of you, if you will, go ahead and come on up here. We'll go in alphabetical order. I guess A comes first, doesn't it? I went to Strawn, I can tell.
Good evening. Well, hey, I want to say thanks to Docs, the staff, and the Covington County Executive Committee for allowing us to be here and, and give you all a little bit of knowledge about who we are. My name's Tommy Amison. This is probably the second time that I've traveled across this district, somewhere in this district, that my wife hasn't been able to come as well. So she's been super great. We just had a ton going on. She wasn't able to be here. Next month we will have been married for 27 years. We've raised 4 children, and last month, March 23rd, we had our first granddaughter. I'm a lifelong resident of Watauga County. I work in Prattville International Papers where I'm employed, and next month I will have been employed with them for 22 years. In August, I will hit the 30-year mark in the U.S. Army, where I'm currently serving as a Command Sergeant Major in the United States Army Reserves. That's a small bio, and with that being said, I'm sure you recognized I didn't say anything about politics. I'm the candidate in this race who's never been involved in politics before. This is what I would want you to know about me. I'm a husband, well, I'm a grandfather, I'm a husband, and I'm a father. I am a conservative Christian, unapologetic. I believe in today's world, it's almost become taboo to say, I'm a Christian. We have to change that. We're the group who doesn't have a voice. We need to get that voice back. The name of this position, representatives. It says it all. This position is supposed to represent speak for, and fight for the people. We've lost that. You know, I don't know when the last time that you thought of your elected official as a true public servant. It's been a long time for me. That's really the fight and desire. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. How better to serve the people than to have walked in the people's shoes? You know, I am a blue-collar worker. I've spent a lifetime of service to our country and the people within this country. I've worked 2 full-time jobs for the last 25 years to support my family. And that's simply what I want to do. I want to take that same servant's heart and fight and take it for the people of this district and the state of Alabama to Washington, D.C. You know, I've had a couple of instances. I'll tell you this. I had a young gentleman and his wife call me probably a month and a half ago. And I'm not trying to bad talk anybody or anything like that, but it's sad what happened. This guy's wife called my wife, and I finally got in touch with him. But he's 27 years old. He come back from Iraq, 100% disabled, IED explosion. He's having issues with the VA. So he calls our current rep. Our current rep asks where he lives. He tells her. She says, I can't help you. You live in Terry Sewell's district, 2 miles over the line, Highway 80. 2 miles. Look, I don't mean this derogatory or mean. I've spent a lifetime of service to this country. There's nobody in this race who will fight for our veterans any harder than I am. And it's not only in this district. That's the thing about it. You know, 1% of America serves this country. 1%. That's called deserving. And I don't care if it's in this district, if it's in Huntsville, or if it's in Baltimore, Maryland. If a veteran needs help, I'm going to help. They've earned it. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks. Going right down the alphabet, I can go from A to B.
All right.
I'll be right.
Good deal. Thank you very much, and thank y'all for allowing us to be here. But more important than thanking y'all for being here, letting us be here, but thank y'all for being here tonight. It's so important for y'all to know who your candidates are, who are running for different positions in this district. I'm Bobby Wright. Many of you know who I am. I have been your congressman in years gone by. We worked awfully hard to make sure that your issues were taken back to Washington, D.C. when I was there for 2 years. You know, we had 16 counties when I served back in 2009 and 2010. And they're motioning for me to get louder. We had 16 counties. We've got 15 counties now. We had 93 different incorporated jurisdictions in the district. I traveled to every single one of them the very first year that I was in Congress. And I didn't send my representatives out to meet with you when you had problems and when you had meetings like this. I came out and sat down with you and we talked and we made sure that your issues were heard. And if we could help some way, we made sure that we could help. We would help you. Now, I am from Dale County, Alabama. I was born and raised over there on a farm. My daddy was a sharecropper. I had 13 brothers and sisters, so I know what it means to work hard. I have never, ever stopped working. Even when I was out of Congress for the last 8 years, I was on my farm. I was working. I was creating a good farm, a successful farm, and I was also creating a park, a outdoor park for people to come and bring their families and enjoy. And we are successful. We're operating now a successful agribusiness in Elmore County, Alabama. But not only was I connected in the Wiregrass area for the first 20 years of my life, I spent 20 some odd years in Montgomery, and 10 of those years were mayor of that great city. Montgomery is not just any other city. I want you to know this. Montgomery is the capital for all laws. So everybody in this room, whether you live in Andalusia or anywhere else, you had a certain claim to the Montgomery area. It was so important for me as mayor to be up there and be successful and to grow our city and to grow it in the right direction and to make it prosper. When I took office, people were leaving the downtown area. It was abandoned. It was really a slummish looking area. And so we took it and revitalized it and made it very successful. If you go down now, you'll see a new Renaissance hotel. You'll see a new and beautiful riverfront area. We had a great team put together, and we also brought industry into the city. We brought Hyundai, and the team that brought in they brought in 2,000 jobs, and by the time this year, I think they employed 3,300, plus about 7 or 8 suppliers, which again brought in another 6,000 to 8,000 jobs. You know, this race is important. The person that we send to Washington needs to know what the issues are. The issues are national defense. Our federal government is responsible for making sure that we're safe, that our families are safe, that our country stands strong. We also need to understand there's an issue out there that needs to be resolved. We need to resolve immigration. Immigration is a major issue right now in our state, in our country. And if we don't resolve it, we're going to very quickly deteriorate into a third world nation. And number 3 is bringing the economy, continuing to keep the economy growing and creating an environment in the state of Alabama, and specifically in District 2, and specifically in Opp and Covington County, an environment that's friendly to business and creating good jobs. You know, we can do the minimum wage jobs. We want good paying jobs, not the $7.35 or $10 an hour jobs. We want the $20 to $25 to $30 an hour jobs. That's what Hyundai brought to Montgomery and to Central Alabama. Now, I am committed to you as I was before. Why am I running now? I'm the oldest one in this group by a long shot. But you know what? I'm also the one with the best and most most solid, mature experience. And we need that in Washington, D.C. I've got 1 minute, and let me tell you how I feel, if I haven't already. I'm committed to you. I love this district. I love Alabama. And the reason I'm back in is because I know I can do better than what is being done today. I'll get back on the Armed Services Committee, the very powerful Armed Services Committee that we had somebody on for over 50 years. And over the last 2 or 3 years, we've had no one on there from this district to protect our veterans, to protect people like Tommy Amison and people like him that have dedicated their lives to our area. So give me that opportunity. I don't go to Washington, D.C. to be popular. I go to Washington, D.C. to work hard. I've done it all my life. I'll do it for you. I did it for Montgomery. I'll do it for Opp and Andalusia and Covington County. So give me that opportunity one more time, and we'll see what we can do, and you won't regret it at all. Thank you very much. I'm Bobby Bright, and if you will, help me make District 2 bright again.
Thank you. Did y'all notice our train we have going around? Thanks to the Dodge folks for doing that. That's kind of neat. All right, going right on down the alphabet. Rich Hobson comes next.
All right. Thank you, Bill. I'm Rich Hobson. I'm running to be your representative. I'm joined here tonight with my wife of 35 years. She's right over there. Also have my mom here of 56 years. She came over from Elba. And I'm here with a lot of friends. I used to live here. And actually, my claim to fame is that my kids were born in Covington County. So I'm glad, and they turned out perfect too. So it's good water. It's good stock. So I am glad to be back. Chief Shaw, he was the chief when I was here. Chief McDonald, he was a detective when I was here. Judge McGuire was the city judge here. So it's really neat to be back home here. I think I'm going to start out a little bit different here, and I want to talk about the differences in me. And because there are some differences between me and everybody else. And I think these differences you're interested in. One is I don't think you want a career politician, okay? I was the first candidate in the race to sign the U.S. term limits pledge, saying that I would not be a career politician. I want to be what our forefathers intended, and that's a citizen legislator. And in fact, it was so important to me that I signed it 2 days after I qualified. So I qualified, or I announced on January the 3rd. I signed it on the 5th of January because it meant that much to me. Another difference that I think you're interested in is I don't think you want someone to raise your taxes, all right? I'm the only challenger in this race who signed the Taxpayer Protection Pledge, saying, I mean, I'm on paper saying I am not going to raise your taxes. I think that's important. I think that's something that you like. Something else is I think you want someone with proven leadership. Now, when I lived here 30 years ago, it was my first job in the court system. I had been a small business owner, but I started working in the court system here in Covington County. And I worked my way up, and I ended up working for Judge Roy Moore. I think we heard a little bit about Judge Roy Moore before, and I'm very, very proud to work with Judge Roy Moore. And I ended up being thank y'all, thank you very much, and thank you for your support of him. I ended up being appointed by Judge Moore as Director of the State Court System. Now, Director of the State Court System, there's only been 8 since the system was created, and I was it twice, each time that Chief Justice Moore was Chief Justice. And in that job, let me tell you a little bit about that. I ran a branch of government, okay? I started here, all right, and I worked my way up. And that branch of government covered 2,000 employees, covered 68 circuit clerks, 252 circuit district judges, and an entire branch of government of $180 million for the budget. I had to work up the budget. I had to secure the budget from the legislature. And then I had to do the all-important thing, and that's live within the budget. Just like you have to do at home, just like we all have to do. Well, Washington, D.C. doesn't seem to know how to do that anymore. And I'd sure like to go over there and show them. So while I was there, while I was in the court system, all those 20 years that I was there were a couple of things that ended up, I implemented that affect your life that I want to tell you about. One is, if you've ever had a juror summons, or if you've ever had a court notice from the court, when you got it, you may not have noticed it, but it was real small, and it was real cheap. Well, in 1997, it was real large, and it was expensive. And I was just a mid-level guy at that time, but I looked at that mail piece, and I'm no mail piece expert or anything, but I said, this can be a whole lot cheaper. We shouldn't have to pay this much postage. So I got with the U.S. Post Office, and we reduced it down to a postcard, and we redesigned the form so it didn't have a window. And that first year, we saved $400,000. That's 20 years ago, so that is not even talking about how postage has gone up. That's a savings of $8 million just for that, okay? Another thing that may affect you if you go into the courthouse is there was a tragedy that happened in 1995 in Mobile. There were a couple of people who were killed. It was very, very tragic. But it opened our eyes to know that security was a big issue in courthouses. There wasn't really any extra staff around the administrative office of courts, and they got me to be the trial court security person. So I ended up, I drew up the trial court security plan, and right now y'all have limited access to your courthouse because of me. Sorry about that. You have to go through a metal detector. So I'm that person. I'm a pro-life person, and I'm a person who has been in the heat before. When I had the job with Judge Moore, when he stood up and he was removed, I was fired the next day for the acknowledgement of God. The next time, when he stood up for traditional marriage and he was asked to bend and fold, I was director of the court system. I was asked to bend and fold. I stood up. I did not waver. When he was removed, I was fired. I've been through the heat twice, and I believe that that's the resolve and commitment that you want in Washington, D.C. So when the swamp comes and they try to affect folks and they try to change them, they won't change me. Montgomery tried to change me and they didn't. Washington, D.C. tried to change me and they won't. My name's Rich Hobson. I ask for your support and I ask for your prayers.
And Mary Moore, it's Neil comes last in this series, so.
Thank you, Bill. First, let me say thank y'all for having me and thank you for being here. These are some tough acts to follow. But the toughest act I've got to follow is my wife. I think she spoke to Covington County here a few weeks ago, and my goodness, I spoke at a church Sunday, and they're like, man, we're going to be voting for your wife if she's running. I said, well, she's not running, y'all have to settle for me. So tonight I wanted her to come with me, but she couldn't make it doing mom things. I got a daughter starting to play tomorrow night or this week, so we've got all that stuff going on, and one coming in from DC. So we're a busy, busy family. But Heather and I have been married 25 years, and you guys know the meaning of married way up. I outkick my coverage, that thing. So Heather couldn't be here tonight, but I appreciate her speaking on my behalf. We were doing budgets. Jones had us tied up doing budgets in the State House, and I want to say hey to Mike. Him and I came in. We're talking about Republicans in this room, and Mike Jones and I, and there was about 30 of us, 20-something of us came in 2010, the first Republican majority since the Civil War in Alabama. And that was this room and rooms all across this community and across this state that elected Republicans to go to Montgomery and work on the system and start sort of refining the process. And y'all, I don't know if y'all heard the term swamp or not, but when we rolled into Montgomery, there were 660 registered lobbyists, about 24 new legislators, and we were all Republicans. And we began to fight and begin to clean that system up. And I'll tell you a quick story. Early on, I'd been there we had passed the toughest immigration law in the country now. And the media was in town, and they were talking about, man, these guys have passed a tough immigration law. And so we're sitting there on the floor of the House, and a bill comes up to extend unemployment. Well, if you've ever been in the House of Representatives and you watch them vote, guys, it goes green when you're a yes, yellow if you don't do anything, and red if you're a no vote. And my wife Heather was there. It was early in the process, and she wanted to be there. You know, it's exciting. We're new in the legislature, and so she's up there sitting in the gallery watching the vote, and the board began to roll. And there was 100 yeses, 4 abstentions, and 1 single no vote, 1 red on the board. And Heather leaned over to Bill Goolsby, and y'all may know Bill, and said, who's the dummy that voted against that bill? And he said, man, that'd be your husband. And so I was walking off the floor of the House, and the President Pro Tem, an Alabama House of Representatives, leaned over and said, Barry, what are you doing? That is political suicide. And I said, sir, we just passed the toughest immigration law in the country a few weeks ago. Now we're going to extend unemployment, let people stay at the house and draw checks. I said, we're going to create a labor market vacuum where private sector dollars are going to compete against government unemployment dollars. Walked off the floor thinking, I've committed political suicide. I've been here for 3 weeks, and I've done committed suicide. And so I went out, and a few months later, we were down in Mobile, and Majority Leader Walter said, Barry, he said, on that vote, you got it right. Well, I'm a small business owner. That's all I've done. I ran 2 terms in the Alabama House. I term limited myself this time. And honestly, guys, I thought I was done with politics. Thought I was done altogether with politics. And I drive a garbage truck, got my CDLs. Matter of fact, Doc Booth, I cleared his fence row a few years ago with an excavator back here. So we've done work, and I grew up in Enterprise over in that area, so we work around here all the time. But at any rate, there was a fellow by the name of Donald Trump coming to Alabama. And I was scheduled to meet with Scott Walker the following day. And so they called and said, Barry, Donald Trump needs the support. He's coming to Alabama. Would you like to meet with him? Would you consider meeting with him? So there was me and a number of legislators that went to Mobile, and it was his first stop in the country. And my wife and I, we walked down the hallway that bus was standing on, and they had asked us, Barry, would you endorse him? And I said, you know what? I think it's the right thing to do. We need somebody outside the swamp. We need somebody to bring some fresh ideas to D.C. And so I stood on that stage August 21st, 2015, became the first elected official in the nation to then endorse a candidate that had a less than 1% chance of winning the nomination. But I was a delegate for him. My daughter was the youngest Trump delegate in the nation. We fought for change, but I believe he needs some help. Donald Trump is not going to be able to do what we sent him to do if we don't get him some help on the ground, guys. I mean, he's doing a lot, but can you imagine the pressure? I mean, I've been under the fire. Being labeled that most dependable conservative vote in 2014 got me drugged through the mud in 2014. But I tell you all this, the refiner's fire is hot. And the Lord did a great work in my heart through that process. And so Psalms 119, 105 says he's a lamp unto my feet. And all I can do is make that next step. So I'm willing to go serve if you want to send me. But with that said, let's go help the president drain that swamp. Send somebody that he knows is an ally. I'm a veteran. I've done all that. So thank you for your time, and maybe we'll get some questions later. Thank you.